what we're discussing is the fact that, well, my intent, not that I guess it matters much, but was to continue to translate and share as Yada, which was the name de plume that I had chosen quite some time ago, to think that so long as I used it, I would be irrelevant to the story, because I never considered the story to be about me, but in fact, the story was about Yahowah. And then we learned that the story wasn't only about Yahowah, it was also about Yahowah's beloved son, Dod. And the more we continued to learn about Dod and Yahowah's relationship, well, we continued to find ourselves analyzing statements that made it quite clear that God had no intent on leaving us being anonymous on this project, and that he has a score or more of names and descriptive titles for what we're doing together. And as I have said so many times, I did not ask for this notoriety. My life would have been a lot simpler. It would have been a much easier project if we were to remain anonymous and just make a contribution to the family of the covenant. The more that we learned about God over time, I was having a great time translating, returning the text to the oldest witness of the Dead Sea Scrolls, scrubbing it of the Masoretic diacritical markings so that it no longer had the religiosity associated with it, and then making connections to lead to profound insights that were fun to not only perceive, but to share. But God had a lot more in mind for our collaboration, and therefore you reach a point in the project and in life where you say, what matters? Is it our comfort of doing this such that it was a major part of our life, but just part of our life? Or do we move over such that we're in Yahowah's lane and it is our life, and that we acquiesce to what it is that God wants? And that's what we did.
I do recall, if I may, that after exposing Islam and Christianity and Judaism, that you became morally indignant, which is the only proper response.
Yeah.
And I recall you saying what I would love to do to Paul, how I would love to witness against him. Well, there's only one way to do that, and that is to be the witness.
Yeah, you have to serve in this role. It is true, to earn the right to be able to serve not only as witness, but actually in this role as judge for those who have been so counter to God's people. By moving out of anonymity and into the spotlight that Yahowah has provided, one of the, I don't know if it's a perk because it's a tough job, but one of the responsibilities is that of judgment, executing divine judgment. And it is something that is brought up in conjunction with this role quite often. And in that regard, the people that I have excoriated, eviscerated, like Muhammad, like Satan as Allah, like Peter and Paul, like Akiba and Maimonides, I will have the opportunity not only to witness against them, but to condemn them. And I think I've earned that responsibility, and I think that's the way that God has intended it for some time. But as we learn, it's not that God had many options here. He's God, he's all powerful and the like, but yet he doesn't like to violate free will. And since there wasn't a single Yehud, a Yisraelite, who was willing to listen to him and respond to him from really 2,500 years ago up until quite recently, God was given no other choice but to work through a goy. Now, he may have wanted to do that from the beginning. All of these prophecies certainly specify a goy, and many of these prophecies were written long before the overall recalcitrance of Israel. So it may have been God's intent from the beginning, just because he started with goy, and he is going to return to goy with the Israelites sandwiched in between. So I can share with you that from all that we can tell, and we have a pretty close and wonderful relationship with Yahweh, he is pleased with what we've accomplished on his people's behalf, even if he remains displeased with his people's recalcitrance and overall attitude. I was told early this morning that there is a person who feigned covenant membership who is writing this dossier on the claim that all of these references to an individual, the Choter, who is filled with these seven spirits of Yahweh and is responsible to fulfill the role of the Parah, which is the bull that is sacrificed on Towrah, and who writes the books that become the Nesh, and this Nachri that we studied in Second Chronicles 6, who is the person who is the right hand of God at this moment, and also the right hand of his beloved son, Dod. This individual who God says will speak to his people and that they should listen to and do what he says, really isn't a person. That's his latest. I don't know if
really
you know
isn't
that.
a person.
Yeah, really isn't a person. That we have somehow managed to fabricate a person out of these many hundreds, if not 1,000 prophecies.
What horseshit.
And my first response is, so why would God speak of an individual in the prophecy?
Why would it say singular male?
Yeah.
Apparently you don't know how to read.
So,
unlike most Yahud, you go back and quote mine.
Yeah, but anyway, it is down girl. It is interesting that you would attribute to, because you have such an inferiority complex, that in miserable life, that you would attribute to God your own failings, that he doesn't know what he's talking about. And that you go one step further and you realize that God speaks of this Adamah Parah, and it's as if a symbol was going to be sacrificed and not a person. And why then would Dod and others and Yahshua write so graphically about what that person would endure? When he spoke of the Passover lamb, was he speaking just of a metaphor, or is it Dod that actually did this deed? When Yahshua not only speaks of the man from Edom, whom he, which would obviously be a goy, because he's the man from Edom, who is dressed in red. Again, he would be a man who treads in the wine vat with Yahshua, which indicates he's in there with both feet, and that Yahshua gets so excited about seeing. He says, "That's my Zeroah, man. That's my guy. He's cultivating the seeds that I have sown." Why would he speak of this person as a man if God didn't intend all of this? Why would he speak of my Dod as a man, and in conjunction with Eldad, the Almighty's beloved? It is peculiar that these kind of conclusions are drawn, but quite frankly, I really don't care.
No,
I don't care what you think or what you believe or the
Your
like.
opinion is irrelevant.
So long as you stay out of our lane and don't you get in the way of what God is trying to communicate to his people. I mean, you can believe that Donald Trump is a gift to America, and that God saved his life, and that he is the last great hope for making America great again. Orange Man is, and that nobody knew what they were talking about when they described Donald Trump in Daniel. Yeah, you can believe whatever you want, just stay out of our way.
You can believe whatever you want. Just remember.
Go be conspiratorial someplace else.
Yeah. You can believe whatever you want.
Yeah.
Just remember that right in the middle of the word believe is the word lie.
Mm-hmm.
Don't forget it.
Yeah. And well, I'm also pleased with what we've accomplished together. These books, which I guess really don't exist because they're all symbolic, that Dinesh doesn't really mean anything. That, we poured
symbolic banner.
The last 24 years of our life into to writing.
Over 100,000 hours, 160,000 plus coffees.
Yeah.
You tell me, buddy.
Yeah. So it, nevertheless, I am still pleased by that accomplishment. And at no time was an artificial intelligence
writing his pieces.
CBT asked to write a word of it.
No.
Nor did
it's all original.
Nor did I borrow from anybody else's writings. And it's entirely original. I'm also feel, sometimes a bit overwhelmed. It's one thing to read and to share the heroics of Moshe and Dode, but entirely another to see oneself spoken about in ways that, we just, we've considered so many times up to this point because God wanted us to know them. And aware of my human flaws and failings, it's always uncomfortable in that regard until you realize that, the whole purpose of matzah, when Dode fulfilled it, was to remove our guilt and make us look perfect in Yahweh's eyes. So he only sees the best of us. That's why we look so good to him, especially compared to others that aren't even willing to listen to him. So it's also clear that Yahshua has led us from the Choter to the Nesh that he has written and that Yahweh lifts up, from the Bashar serving as the herald to the Kol, the very voice of God, and from the Zeroah, the one cultivating the seeds of the harvest, to the Parah, which is the productive bull. And now in our last citation, we found that Solomon introduced Yisrael to the Nakri, this observant foreigner, so they might listen to him. Wonder why we'd have to use a term like observant foreigner if he wasn't a person. And how are you supposed to listen to him if he's not a man?
Maybe ears don't exist either. Who knows?
Who knows?
Yeah. You can believe whatever.
Yeah, I would have been delighted to remain Yada, an invisible and transparent witness serving to share Yahweh's testimony as accurately as possible. But our Father wanted more. And he incorporated his adopted son into his story. And I have become, his voice at this time, one calling out of the wilderness of words, preparing all who will listen to Yahweh's arrival with his firstborn, our shepherd, the Messiah and King, as well as our Savior, being the first person to realize that Dode filled all of these roles. And I have been afforded the opportunity to cleanse the whore, the adulterous woman that Israel has become, preparing the remnant of Israel for the great reset, which is obviously in preparation for their betrothal to our King and his return with Yahweh. So should you be Jewish, the thought of a goy performing in this fashion for God may come across as a bit insulting. And perhaps that's the point. Given every advantage, Yehudim turned a blind eye and a deaf ear to God. And so by using a goy, our Father may be taunting his children by saying, if he gets it, why are you so clueless? God has tried every other approach, including speaking directly to his people, but with very limited success. The last time you told him to shut up and go away, you never wanted to see him or hear from him again. He's obliged. And this is what you get. This slap on the face in his final attempt to awaken you. If you're offended, that's probably the whole purpose. That's the strategy. Live up to your calling and we will sing together. Continue to be belligerent. and we will go our separate ways. The reunion with his family on Towrah, leading to Kippurim, well, maybe the most joyous moment in Yahweh's eternal existence. And to think that he wants to share it with you and me speaks volume about him. It's also consistent with Yahweh's nature and his intent. So much like a loving father and what we would expect to come from the God we've come to know, respect, and love. Well, since the moment we heard Yahweh reveal that my Dod would be inspired as a Nabi prophet, in addition to Eldod in Bamidbar, Numbers 11, pursuant to the restoration of Israel, I began a time of struggling, trying to ascertain how this could be possible. And that is Yahweh's nature has been with our relationship all along. Every step of the way, there was a new ask, a new request, a new declaration, a new responsibility, and on it goes.
Yep.
So that, you hardly go a month
Before you get a new one.
without having a new one. And it's, I guess it would have been overwhelming to the point of doing a Moshe moment and just saying, God, just kill me. I can't do this anymore. If you have any respect for me at all, would you please just remove me from this impossible job? I'm not up for it. I don't think anyone is up for it. Put in another player coach.
I only do that, like really just disgusted is when we have these little faction groups that come up and rear their ugly head.
Yeah, it is. So if God were to have begun the relationship by delineating all of this, oh, by the way, you're not only going to be a named player, I'm going to talk as much about you as I do anyone apart from my beloved son, Dod. And oh, by the way, you're going to be the first one to figure out that Jesus never existed and that he was a crude counterfeit of Dod, who was actually the Messiah, Son of God, and the one who fulfilled Passover by being crucified and telling us all about it. And that's
doing it in Yahweh's
Oh, and that's
name.
going to go over really well. People are just going to love you for that one. And then you're going to be the most effective ever at exposing and condemning Allah as an ungod and Muhammad as a non-prophet.
Oh, yeah.
And completely trashing the validity of the Quran. That ought to be a lot of fun. In fact, we're going to start there. So that's going to be great. And we'll do like 10,000 radio interviews and television interviews on this subject where people can mock you and threaten to kill you. That ought to be,
lots of that. And one fatwa too. That's
fatwa
amazing.
from the Saudi Arabians. That'll be really good too. And then, by the way, once you're finished exposing, condemning Islam and then Christianity, we're going to go after rabbis, and they are mean son of a guns. And you're going to actually have to disprove a book that almost everyone believes is a prophetic testimony, that there really is going to be a Gog and a Magog war, and there's going to be a third temple, and that Ezekiel saw the Lord in heaven through astrological signs, that there's going to be a valley of dry bones, and this new temple that's the size of all of
abomination.
Of Judah combined, so that it paves over everything that God has achieved with his beloved son. And oh, by the way, you're going to be the first person to prove that it needs to be rejected, but not just thrown away because it happens to be Satan's autobiography. Good luck with that. That'll be a lot of fun. Oh, and I want to throw in this last little tidbit. You've heard the story of the red heifer and how it gets slaughtered. That's you. So how do you like the job so far?
Real fun.
So it has been all the way along. It's just one more thing after another. And like a loving father with a toddler, you don't start that toddler driving a Ferrari.
I'd hope not.
You might start him on a baby carriage and then work your way up to pulling him in a red wagon before you give him a tricycle. And that's kind of where we have been. And now we are we're flying jet airplanes. But we didn't get our pilot's license for that jet airplane prior to doing a lot of preparatory work together. So as I've shared with you, the most recent cathartic expression from Yahowah was to introduce my Dode and El Dode. El Dode is the beloved of Yah, that would be Dode. And my Dode is his right hand, his assistant, his herald. But to introduce them after Moshe quit. And so that Moshe would say, all right, all I have to do is get them to the promised land. You've got it from here. You got a couple of guys. I got a couple of fellas.
I got a couple of
fellas. Yeah, I got a couple of guys. And those guys are going to take it from here. Not to worry. And he shows those guys prophesying. And when it was asked of him by Yosha ben Nun, what do you mean to do about those guys? They're talking for Yahowah. What would you like? Just previously we had Miriam and Aaron say that they also talked for God, and God smacked them down, turned them into white with leprosy, banished them from the community. And now we've got a couple of guys here that they're claiming they're claiming it's obvious they're speaking for Yahowah. And Moshe said, oh my God, don't stop them. If only everyone could do what they're doing. Oh, that's the answer. So you read this kind of thing and you realize there's only two people that fit that role. And so, but how can...
Yeah, and to the complainer, name one other individual speaking in Yahweh's name.
Yeah. So here you go with them being, well, we're not going to even, I probably shouldn't even brought him up because he's such a nobody in the overall scheme of things. But, with this kind of a pronouncement, and he says they're both prophets, Nabi, then you're going, well, wait a minute. I've gone to this point recognizing that what you said about the Choter means that he doesn't receive visions. He's not the person that hears God talking in his ear such that he can parrot what God has said, that this is the person you're going to teach from the prophets, and then he's going to share what he has learned. That's a lot different, and that's what the way that you described it as the Choter. And I was of the impression that if you're a prophet, everything you said has to be correct. And that's simply...
You were wrong about that.
I was wrong about that. See, there you go. So maybe I can be a prophet now that I know that was wrong. And one of the stark reminders of this, because nobody wants to live up to that standard of you have to be right all of the time.
No, you can't.
That goes.
It's
that goes.
impossible. We're human.
It puts the people that have agreed to listen to God and do as God wants, and who are devoted to it. And you can't be any more devoted to this than I am, or we are, all of us. And it puts that person in an impossible situation. So what you would do is you'd clam up. Rather than share 20,000, 25,000 pages of insights and make myself vulnerable because of all of the claims and dates and specifics that I have deduced from Yahweh's words, you wouldn't share any of it.
No,
if
you'd be terrified.
If your standard is perfection, well, if you
terrified.
say nothing, then you can't say anything wrong. We'd all go, that would be it. And so God said, no, you can't have that kind of standard. Then there's no human interface in my communication with my people. And so when you read Devarim 18, what you find out, that's not what God says at all. And the biggest point is, if somebody speaks for me, they speak in my name. And number one, and number two, they do not promote false gods. And number three,
Oops.
they know it because I've said it.
Hmm.
They know it because I've said it. And so you find out there's an entirely different situation. And then you are confronted by, all right, so there's the three guys that I'm the closest to in terms of my admiration and appreciation of them. You start with Moshe. Moshe, Yahweh says, the greatest of the prophets. When you read Numbers 11, Moshe didn't just say things that were wrong.
Oh, no. He was abysmally wrong.
I mean, if you were to take all of the mistakes and conclusions that I have made over the years, all of which I've sought to correct, and you were to combine them all together, they aren't navel length compared to what Moshe said about God.
Yeah, well, us Yahud are pretty nuclear.
Yeah, I know.
We're pretty nuclear.
I'm not judging, saying that I'm going to say Moshe's response was dead wrong.
Yeah.
But I understand the circumstances that led to it. Jews can be obnoxious, and he was in the presence
They
of
can drive you
600,000
mad.
of them, and I only have to deal with them online and and in the bedroom. And so it is quite a different scenario.
Indeed.
But when you realize that Moshe was demonstrably wrong,
Yes.
and so now what you do is, so Moshe had made a conclusion.
So was Dode.
So Moshe, when he is speaking for Yahweh and delivering, for example, Bamidbar, he is delivering in the beginning, and Barishith, when he's giving literally saying that this is what Yahweh told me. When he is Yahweh's mouth, as he was during the experience during all of Devarim, then what Moshe says is accurate. But when Moshe has his own response to things, it's his own response. Just all there is to it.
Well,
And so if I'm analyzing a text and I come to a conclusion based on analyzing the text, that's my conclusion. It might be right, might be wrong. I'm going to do my best to validate it. But the more you learn, the more you're able to correct and enhance and expand what can be known and understood. So that's one of the things I came to realize. Then I looked at the greatest man who ever lived, Dode. And Dode's Mizmor are prophetic. Like, for example, he has a depiction of crucifixion, which describes the way crucifixion kills scientifically, medically,
yeah.
700 years before crucifixion was invented.
Yes.
And he foretold that he himself would be crucified 1,000 years in advance of it occurring.
True.
He actually announced through Daniel the exact date that he would fulfill Chakmah 650 years in advance.
Mm.
That's a prophet.
Surely.
That's
Surely.
absolutely a prophet. When Dode was asked 3 questions, says you can choose the fate for yourself and for Israel, after he had had an inappropriate moment, he chose the wrong one. There were 3. He could have chosen either of the other 2 and have been fine. He chose the wrong one. When Dode chose to cry for Absalom as opposed to cheer the success of restoring his kingship, he was wrong. When he sent some of his men down to Bethlehem and to harm's way because he liked the taste of the water there, he was wrong. When he sent his best man out to be killed so that he could take his wife, Bathsheba, he was wrong. So, most beloved man of God, absolutely a prophet and God's chosen one. A man who is like Moshe, had the Spirit within him. And was he not capable of being wrong? Did he not remain human?
Here's what I know.
Mm-hmm.
Only the religious cannot discern between what you say for Yahweh and what is personal in your personal life.
Mm-hmm.
You have this religious hocus pocus, this veil, this smoke and mirrors, this juju. I don't call it whatever you want. It's disgusting. And the fact that people cannot understand that these are men and women who had actual lives, lived and breathed, just as we do right now. They're not a story. They're not a caricature.
Yeah,
they're real.
It had to be that way because the children of Israel told Yahweh to shut up and go away. They never wanted to hear from him and see him again, which means he was therefore going to speak through people all the way until his return with the Dode, at which time he would begin to speak again directly to us. And therefore, to speak through people, they all have to be real.
Yeah, but the religious expect you to be perfect.
There is no such thing.
Yes, but that's how they act. You spelled it wrong. You presented it wrong. You're not who you say you are. Why? Because they're still freaking religious. They're looking for validation from their old school ways.
Yes.
Go back to your father's
what
house.
Yahweh said we're going to examine, but it boils down to, does that person speak with great respect about Yahweh and in Yahweh's name? Does that people denounce rather than speak in the name that are attributed to other gods? And was that individual announced by God such that they know and others can know that Yahweh has positioned that individual to speak for him? And prophecy in that sense means that you are acting as the mouth and the voice of God as it's filtered through a human. So
before we go on,
yes,
here's what I know as a Yahud. We once had the perfect source, which was Yahweh. No, we didn't want that.
you did want that.
Then we had the judges, and then we didn't want
You
that.
had Moshe, and you didn't like that either.
We had
like
the
that
Nabi. We didn't want that. We had Dode. We didn't want that.
That's true.
But along came Paul, and woo, yeah. Along came Muhammad, and woohoo.
Well, actually,
anything else but Yahweh.
Actually, not woohoo. Paul died miserable and alone. During his lifetime, they knew exactly who he was. If you read all of his letters, in every community that he preached, he was universally rejected. And if you look at Muhammad after 12 years of preaching in Kabaville, he didn't have 5 followers to show for it. And they were the scum of the earth. No, these
crap rises.
They were not. It's the legends that have been concocted about them going back, and it's really true with even Moshe. It's legends that have been concocted about him that have taken out the realism of his life. That is why going into Numbers 11 was such a cathartic experience, such a necessary experience for us at this time, because it says that you don't have to be perfect. To be able to serve God in the most important way, which is to lead his people out of religion and politics and to speak for him, which Moshe did, and yet he wasn't perfect. And there is no one who proved this more than Dode, who admitted that he had more faults than he had hairs on his head, and yet he is just such a tremendous contributor to the covenant family. It is the beauty of Yahweh's solution, which he implemented through Dode. The beauty of that solution is that rather than forgiving us of known crimes against God and against his people, mistakes, if you will, in judgment, God does not do that. He is not forgiving us for anything. What he's doing is he took all of our mistakes, all of our prior religiosity and politics,
And had instant amnesia about
took
it.
it all away and threw it into Sheol, where it can never be seen again. It is the
Amnesia.
ultimate prisoner in Sheol, is everything you and I have ever done that is wrong. So from God's perspective,
We are
when he
perfect.
says, I want that guy to be a prophet for me, he is perfect.
Mhm.
It's all God hears, is the perfection, because what God's looking for in that person is someone who is devoted to him, respects him, listens to him, cares deeply about what he wants,
And is right.
will change their entire life to reflect what God is trying to achieve, and will stick to that all the way through and never veer and never give up.
Never waver.
That is what he's looking for. If you can do that, that is beyond perfect from God's eyes. That is the ultimate attaboy.
Mhm.
And
Or at a girl.
or attagirl. No, yeah, attaboy. We're in gender neutral times here. So while it's true that I composed Prophet of Doom, now Goddamn Religion, under my name, and I did it originally because I thought that it would be more credible. And I knew that since God had promised to protect me, I could do it under my name and live through it. And I did. And I thought to write it under an alias would be a wrong thing to do. But all
And
the books.
so many counterparts that write exposés, books on
Oh, yeah.
Islam, they do not use their own
The
name.
majority of them. And
Vast
then when it came to the Yada Yahowah series, I just became Yada. And
Stepping
that
back.
was just fine. So that was my nom de plume. Now, I didn't know that Yahowah was the one that chose it long before I did, or maybe, because Yahowah can look forward in time, maybe I did choose it and God is just referencing it. He even references Yada Yahowah. So I assumed that he chose it and directed me to it, but it doesn't have to be that way. It could have been that my own free will, I chose that as a title, and God, having gone into a future time,
That's right.
reported back through a prophet.
That's
By
right.
the way, the title that he chose is Yada Yahowah, and his name
There
is
you
Yada,
go.
and we'll take it from there.
It works.
That's certainly fine, and it works. It works either way. So here we are. Yahowah has, however, upped the ante, and he has begun to unveil a score of descriptive names and titles to delineate the role that he has chosen in reintroducing his name to the world while reacquainting his people with the actual Messiah, Savior, and Son of God, Dode. Now, up to the point of Naba, which is the way it is written in the text and the Torah, the names, titles that were used to describe someone who would learn to do this job by studying the words of those who had come before was just always a descriptive title. And the methodology was always the same. That methodology was so cool because what that methodology did is it validated every claim that I would make. Because I said, I didn't receive this by a personal revelation, which I'd have no way to prove. I can say, I deduced this conclusion. Like, for example, there are 3 destinations for human souls, which I'm the first person, and maybe the only person still to talk about, that the covenant had 5 terms and conditions, that Yahweh's name is pronounced in the manner according to his Torah and the verb Haya, that Dode is the Messiah, Son of God, and returning king who fulfilled Passover by being crucified as he himself disclosed. There are literally 10,000 of these, and every one of them I deduced by analyzing the Word of God. And it wasn't until about 4 or 5 months ago that I reported having my first prophetic vision.
Yeah.
And at the time, I said, I'm just going to share this with you. It's what I saw after deducing the role of the Adam of Parah in in Yeshayah's depiction of what was going to happen on Towrah, where he describes the parah, and then seeing it in Yeshayah 11 as he defines the Choter and says the Choter is the parah. Knowing what Eliah did with the sacrifice of the bull, and then reading about the sacrifice of the Adam of Parah in Numbers 19, and then seeing how that applies to Numbers 5, it became obvious to me how this was going to transpire. And I had the first vision I've ever had, and I reported it as a vision. I'm not saying it's anything more than a vision, but I said, this is how I see this playing out on the Temple Mount, and what's happened to the Temple Mount, and the restored tent of the witness up there, and the restored altar that has the 4 horns, and that was actually used when the Nachri speech was given. Solomon stood in the middle of it. And I knew that he delivered that speech on Towrah. So I said, this is what's going to happen on Towrah. And this is why Eliah was chosen, because it's a reenactment of what he has done previously. And I said, I've seen it in my mind's eye.
Yeah, you told me about it.
And I've shared it with you, Leah. I shared it on this program. And I said, that's the first time I ever had a vision on anything. And subsequently, now particularly as I'm reading what Gabriel, who is Dode, and Michael, who is, that would be me, had to say about that day. And they are describing exactly what I saw. Which is maybe why I saw it. So we have progressed to the point that there's an occasional vision, but the fact of the matter is, I don't care if you believe or don't believe the one vision that I've had. And not only now is it substantiated in the prophets, which is good enough, but the fact of the matter is the case that God makes for himself and what we need to do to be part of the covenant family and be part of the Shabuah and Teruah harvest is quite clear. Trust it based upon the word of God. And you don't have to be a prophet. Now, all that said, I have made hundreds upon hundreds of predictions in this role. And they've all happened as I said they would. I'm still making them by the scores. They're still playing out as I said they would. So it is, it seems to be going with the job. And, a prophet's job is to reveal insights about God. And in these books that you see behind me and in these programs, there's at least 10,000 of them. I even have the keeper of the cables over here. He says, every day it's a whole new set of profound insights and revelations that confirm everything that we have come to expect and know. And he says, I stopped checking. I used to check them all and say, wow, that sounds great, but can I confirm it? And he finally this morning says, I just stopped. I have now confirmed so many thousands of these things, and I haven't found a single one of them to be invalid. So I'm just now going to enjoy them.
I got other things to do.
It's just too good. I did that with you a long time ago.
Yeah, I think that happened with our friend Kirk, and probably with Kevin as well. We finally reached that point. So that doesn't change the fact that that Yahweh using the term Naba as it appears in Numbers 11 and associated with Eldod and with Midod was something I was not comfortable seeing. And I wanted to go away because I didn't want to live up to that standard.
Well, can you tell the people what the difference between Nabi and Naba is?
Well, it's defined the same way. And my guess is that the difference really is the lack of the yod at the end, because Nabi, which we all pronounce as Nabi, and Nabah are written the same way through the first 3 letters.
Mm-hmm.
It's the addition of the yod at the end.
Mm-hmm.
And so with the naba, the vowel is vocalized where it's considered to be silent in nabi. It's the same word.
Oh, so
It's
you
like-
think it's the same thing?
It's the same word. It's the difference is the same as nakar and nakri. Nakar and nakri have the same first three letters,
Mm-hmm.
and nakri adds the yod. Naba is the first three letters that are the basis of the Hebrew word for prophet. But God typically puts the Y at the end of it. And sometimes a single Y simply means plural without the M. And it can also mean my.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm using
Like
this person
possessive, yeah.
as my prophet. But anyway, it's written as Naba in that particular context. And it describes someone who would learn to do the job by studying the words that had come before. He was set into the context of the Torah, after all. And, I wasn't being asked to blaze a new path, but simply, in my case, to reveal, explain, declutter, promote the path that had been previously prescribed. And somehow serving as a prophet in addition to a witness seemed to suggest that we'd be covering new territory and perhaps going beyond reporting and presenting how the picture previously painted all fits together to show the way. But all along, we have gone into new territory. I mean, the very moment you come to the conclusion that there are three destinations for human souls, and they were proclaimed with the
that's
three
the
doors
territory.
on the ark, and that they are attested throughout God's testimony, and that most souls simply cease to exist at the end of their mortal lives, as opposed to going to eternal separation or eternal life in heaven. That's opening a window to a place no one had ever gone before.
And I know that many appreciated that work.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So there has been a lot of new
Oh, yeah.
ground that has been discovered. Our most recent trek through Daniel has
Wow.
all been
Yeah.
new ground.
Wow.
There is no part of it that has ever been properly presented previously.
No.
It is all new ground. Sure, it's a prophetic text, but
Nobody's ever gotten it right.
no one understood it previously,
No.
and we needed to understand it now, and so we are. So I have spoken for Yahweh and for his prophets, and I have told God's story. Inspired by his words and by his seven spirits, I have come to know Yahweh and his son, even their story. And I've come to know Yahweh and his son and what they have done together. Now, one of the things that was a profound revelation today, may not mean a lot to anybody but me, but when speaking of this Toraless one, this the denizen of the devil, and his encounter with the Adama Parah, with Yada, the final witness at the end, there was a statement that says, you want to understand who I'm talking about, read Yeshaya 11. No, not Yeshaya 11, Yeshaya 14. Read Yeshaya 14 if you want to understand, because it made a double reference to this person is going to make claims that are contrary to and that change his position relative to the Most High. There's only one person in God's entire story who does that. That is Halal ben Shakar, Satan. And so what that means is that the Toraless one is not being demon-possessed like Paul was or Muhammad was. He has got Satan's spirit inside of him. That puts him in an entirely different league. He is Satan incarnate.
Well,
That's what it
sir-
says. So then you take, so this ultimate rendezvous,
Mhm.
the battle royale, the greatest show ever earth, mono a spirito. Now you want to know why the Choter was given the spirit of Yahowah? It is the spirit of Yahowah versus the spirit of Satan. That is the battle on the Temple Mount on Towrah. So there are lots of insights.
Okay, well, speaking on
Yes.
Satan
Mm-hmm.
himself, I was watching a live on Donald Trump's always congratulatory to himself speeches
Mm-hmm.
that he
That's every day.
veils as what's new and what we're doing for the American people.
This was one where his skin color was far
Horribly.
worse than your
very
bronze.
bronzy, very orange.
Boy,
Yeah.
you know. Oh, by the way, you know bronzy. You know what's interesting about bronze?
What?
In the book of Ezekiel,
Mhm.
Ezekiel's the Lord's accomplice all the way through the book of Ezekiel.
Oh my
particularly at the
God,
end
he's
day.
bronze.
He's bronze man.
The orange guy.
He is.
He is.
the-
We got it.
Yeah, somebody asked me the other day, says, is there a word for orange in the
Bronze.
Torah? And even though Hebrew has a word for orange, it's
not
either never used or used so sparingly, you can't find it in any
Bronze.
lexicons. I mean, I learned what the word was, but it's not written anywhere. But guess what? The
Bronze.
whole maneuvering of Satan stops being Ezekiel in the end, and it becomes Bronze Man, or Bronze Boy, as I call him.
Yeah.
And so yeah, he was absolutely bronze. His face didn't even look human. When you agree, we watched it and we come and look.
Oh,
it just
yeah.
can't be human.
The makeup was horrible.
There's something not human about that.
Okay, so while watching
Okay.
Bronze Boy today give a
Yes.
live,
Yes.
doing his I'm so wonderful crap, he said something that was really interesting.
You say he's conceited?
No, he said something was very
No, I
interesting,
said,
but
okay.
he is very conceited,
Yeah.
yes. That he was talking about the war in Ukraine and how it was fought by drones, a lot of people dying, death everywhere. And he actually said something I'd never heard part of his lexicon, and I understand baseline human souls. They're killing a lot of human souls. And the way he said it was so creepy.
Well,
Like really, it gave
What do you
chills
want?
down my spine.
which, by the way, is
creepy
interesting,
creeps.
is that it's actually not accurate. While there are enormous numbers of people dying in that war, they're all dying on one side. The kill ratio is now upwards of 30 to 40 to 1. The Team NATO, Team US is getting murdered. And the Russians are losing almost no one. It is a bloodbath because the United States continues to arm the Ukrainians, and the Ukrainians are being slaughtered, and there hasn't been any chance of a Ukrainian victory for 2 years, and now it's an annihilation, and yet the US continues to supply weapons so Ukrainians can die, and there's been almost 2 million Ukrainians deaths because of this stupid war. You know what he actually said? I mean, I haven't been able to read the text, so I'm just going by what briefly went across the screen, is that since he couldn't solve it, although he wouldn't admit that he's turned the resolution over to UAE and Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
That
Isn't that sexy?
The two men that I am convinced, by the way, are going to be part of the Big Ten Conference.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're familiar with the Big Ten Conference. You're now familiar with the Big Ten Conference. I read it to you
Yep.
this morning. The Big Ten Conference are the 10 heads of state that are part of the Antichrist team at the end, and
Team Trump.
I was able to ascertain who they are based upon all
MBS.
of the testimony that leads up to them. And the first two guys, I said, okay, I'm going to start with this list.
These
first
two
guys I put on that list were Al-Thani and who
Al-Thani
is
and
Qatar,
MBS.
by the way, and MBS of Saudi Arabia, and also included the Emir of United Arab Emirates. And it said they own Trump. They bought him fair and square.
Mhm.
There's no
right.
chance they're
Lock,
not going
stock,
to.
and barrel,
No
baby.
chance they're going to use their guy.
You know,
And then you'd have to say, wait a minute, how can that be? That wouldn't be. They weren't part of the Roman Empire. Doesn't say they were part of the Roman Empire. It said that there would be a beast that evolves out of the Roman Empire that treads on the entire world. And so these 10 people, all they have to be is from someplace where the Eastern Orthodox Church or the Roman Catholic Church had a presence. And so the first thing I did is say, well, I got 3 countries that I've got to look at here to see if there was any significant presence. And what you find is that in Saudi Arabia, do you know how many Roman Catholics, you know how many Roman Catholics there are in Saudi Arabia?
Currently? There's a few. Now, they've opened the country.
Oh, not a few. You guessed 100,000, and you thought you were way high, right?
Yeah.
1.3 million.
Get up.
No, 1.3 million. And then I looked up the Christian population currently in Qatar and United Arab Emirates, and in this area, the church first went into those areas in the 3rd century. I mean, really early on, and established churches and monasteries and all that sort of thing there. 13 to 15%, depending on the country. I mean, which is just stunning in the world of Islam, where they devoured Christians. I mean, they ate them for lunch, and yet you find these numbers. You're going, oh my goodness! What he's saying is, yep, that's you found it. Good for you.
The earliest churches in the world were not in Europe.
Oh my!
So yeah, the earliest churches in the world were not in Europe.
Well, of course. So this is a
matter of fact,
a great fascination. Anyway, I was able to come up with the top 10. I gave you 3 others to consider as options, so that you'd have some to look at. I even gave you the 3 that would be cut down at the knees and announced by the dumpster, which is something he does exceedingly well. Okay,
where
we don't care.
Muhammad sold one of his slaves, Najar. That was a Christian city.
Okay. All right. So here we are, addressing the narrative of father and son, of conveying what God had to say to us. And while contemplating the additional title of Naba, I was troubled by the idea that prophets had to be perfect. We've shared that. And I'm not so comfortable with that. So I realized that not only would everyone God has chosen say the same thing, Dode has actually made all of us perfect before Yahweh. But aren't prophets supposed to be inerrant? And if so, I wouldn't qualify, because I'm constantly learning. And the more you learn, the more you go back and improve things that you previously have said. And so if you refine, augment, and sometimes correct prior conclusions, how could you be a prophet if inerrancy is a part of the test, but it's not? God wants us to learn. And oh, by the way, if God did a data dump, let's say that our gig started now 24 years ago, and he says, all right, here's the data dump. I just want you to, in fact, I don't even know why I would bother to have you type these books. I'll just give them to you. Here they are. You don't need an editor. You don't need any damn publisher. Here they are. And oh, by the way, when we do this YAHOWAH blog, all you need to do is just sit there and look like an idiot, and blah, 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 blah. I'll make the mouth move. Well, that's a data dump.
Whoa, isn't that called Christianity?
Well, that would be called being a robot. There'd be no purpose in any of that. What if you started with Moshe the same way? Just give you the data dump. We'll go from there, which means the next 40 years of your life is going to be a complete farce. Just sit there and eat bonbons. I'll take it from here. But he didn't, did he? Did he tell Dode, okay, listen, I'm anointing you, and you're 8 years old. You're going to go the next gig. By the way, I'm not telling you right now because it's probably a freak you out, but you're going to go and kill a giant with a single stone. And then after that, you're going to think, hey, you got it pretty well licked because, yeah, you're the hero. Well, then the king that the people want over you, who I want to be king. I know you're just 8, but you'll grow into the sandals. He's going to send out everybody he can to kill you. So it ought to be fun. I mean, it's and by the time you actually get to be king, your own son's going to lead a coup against you. And so, God doesn't do a data dump. He doesn't say, here's your whole life. You're at this point, we're being fatalistic. You're going to do everything you've been programmed to do. that's not the way he works. Not the way he works through anything. And can you imagine an eternity where we start eternity, we're perfect, we know everything, we can't get anything wrong? How boring would we be? Can you imagine God saying, I'm going to go through all this trouble to have creation, and I'm going to communicate these people, and what I want is mini-me's.
Well,
I
then
want
he
nothing but
should have-
mini-me's who are
he should have
perfect.
just created a bunch of automatons.
Yeah, that are just little robots of me. I could look in the mirror, and they'll talk back to me with saying the same thing I already know.
Do you know why?
How fun would that? It'd be like having, you have a kid, and the kid is born smarter than you are, having achieved everything in his life while it's still in diapers. No, it's just stupid. So why do we go to such stupid places? It's so obviously untrue. Why do we go to such stupid places?
Religion teaches us to.
Oh, this idiot that wanted to say, I guess that was the thing that tipped him off when I said that Yahweh has called my dote a prophet. I didn't say I was a prophet. I just said Yahweh called my dote a prophet, and I'm obviously my dote, and we'll make of that what we will. But that brings in a sticky wicket that we need to figure out, because I had a different impression of what a prophet was.
But you were wrong.
But the fact is, I was wrong, and I can just hear God laughing and saying, "Huh? Okay,
Yeah.
I gave you the chance.
There's the lesson, son, right there.
There you go, lesson learned." All right. So Dode made us all perfect. So I began to think there were actually two kinds of prophets in Yahweh's story, and these include what I would call pure prophets, like Yeshayah, Yirmiah, Zechariah, Yoel, and Malachi. Do you recall Yeshayah, Zechariah, Yoel, Malachi doing anything, or they just said, God told me this, and I'm telling you, he told me? Well, occasionally, you have an act or two. So there is a place where Yeshayah engages with the king. Hezekiah, I think, was the king. And Yirmiah has some where he is encountering some people, and he has a little tussle with them and say, you're doing the wrong thing here with Babylon. You're doing the wrong thing here, and it's going to bite you in the butt if you don't wake up. So Yirmiah had a role, and Yeshayah had a role. Zechariah's role was, they don't know what they're talking about. That's not really completely true. He actually had some brilliant deductions along the way, but he had a real tough time on some of them as we go deeper in, like the two witnesses. Now he was not very fast on the uptake with them. And so we don't see anything. We know so little about Yoel other than what he told us prophetically about God. We can't even place him in history. So there are pure prophets. Yoel is a pure prophet. And there are player prophets, of which Dode and Moshe are the ultimate player prophets. And I use the term, God has a play. We're playing our roles in this. He has characters in his story. Story is not a pejorative. Play is not a pejorative. Characters is not a pejorative. So these are the people who play roles in God's unfolding story. And the two player prophets mostly are Moshe and Dode. But so is Abraham. In fact, Abraham is 99% player and 1% prophet.
Yeah, but they're not called Nabah.
Well, no, absolutely.
Okay,
so no. Abraham's called a prophet.
Nabah?
He's called a prophet. Absolutely. Yahweh calls him a prophet. And for a reason. What do you think that Abraham and Yishak did on Mount Moriah?
Exactly.
That was a living prophecy.
Okay, so I have this theory, right?
Yes.
The theory is this, that Nabah is the source from which prophecy is spoken about. Like it's a thing that happens. And the Nabi are the guys who talk about it.
No, the word is not differentiated. So anyway, you've got a guy like Abraham who said a lot of dunderhead stuff. Mm-hmm. And yet Yahweh calls him a prophet because he reveals something that is prophetically important to us, because 2,000 years thereafter, Dode would do exactly that same thing when God said, I will provide the lamb, and speaking of a beloved firstborn son. And so That's what he was. Now, Moshe, of course, is the most profound of the player prophets along with Dode, but so was Shamuel. Shamuel was absolutely a prophet, and yet he plays a major role in God's story. So in each case, their lives are woven into their story such that not everything they say is correct. They can speak for themselves. And if they couldn't speak for themselves, if they had to speak for God with everything they said, what's the purpose of even having them? So even with Moshe, during his emotional meltdown, he said some things about God, which he clearly regrets. Dode especially admits to having more faults than hairs on his head. So in this case, these men, they both spoke for themselves and they spoke for God. This distinction is particularly clear with Moshe, as we listen to him reveal what God told him, and then at other times share his own thoughts and reactions. And by the time that we arrive at Debatim, it is as if Yahweh is using Moshe's mouth to speak through him to us. And I think he does that because when you examine what happens in Numbers up to that point, it's pretty brutal. And Moshe almost never comes to his own defense. He always runs to Yahweh and does a nose plant.
Just like Jews.
So he does not come to his own defense. And so Yahweh finally said, okay, I promised that I would use his mouth, that I could use his mouth, and I will use his mouth. And that's what happened. So considering Dode, he spoke for himself throughout the historical text, such as Shamuel and Malachim, when he's saying, hey man, I live in this fine house made of all cedar up here, and God's out there blowing in the wind under curtains. I think I need to make God a house of cedar. And what did God say to him? Hey boy.
It's me who built it.
Let's get something straight here. Did I ever once ask the children of Israel, the very children of Israel that I removed from slavery, once did I ask the children of Israel, why don't you build me a house of cedar? You think maybe if I wanted a house of cedar, I would have asked them for a house of cedar? So, I mean, he's just saying what you just said,
Stupid.
young man, was not very bright. But we're going to have a wonderful discussion about this, because what I'm going to tell you based upon what you just said is going to change the way we look at the world. God is capable of using our less than inspired moments to inspire something extraordinary. Same thing was true with Debatim 11. Same thing is true with Debatim 12. These were horrible moments in Moshe's life where he did not have a response, or his response was terrible. Mm-hmm. And God used both to inspire amazing stories.
Yeah.
And so the same thing is true with Dode in here. So when we listen to Dode and we realize that he both speaks for himself and he speaks for Yahweh, particularly speaking for Yahweh when composing his Mizmor and Mashal. They're filled with all sorts of prophetic insights. So when writing the words of God that God inspired, he's consistently correct and serves as a more classical Nabi. And when we hear him communicate his thoughts as he battles through life's challenges, the dialogue is always interesting and clearly revealing, but it reflects his conclusions of the moment. When Dode was anguishing over Absalom and crying, and he was confronted and said, hey, get over yourself, get down there and start speaking to the people, he admitted he was wrong. He came down and started speaking to people, didn't he?
Yeah.
When Dode made the wrong choice, so when he had the three propositions, and he realized he made the wrong choice, he said, I made the wrong choice. I need to get out of this. I'm sorry. Let's try again. I'll be better next time. So as I tried
A man who can admit his mistake in this day and age is just damn right sexy.
Right. And it's something that Yahweh greatly appreciates.
Yes.
By the way, Yahweh even
being humble.
Yahweh actually said he made a mistake. He regrets having created humankind.
Yeah. Well, look what we've
And
done.
when he spoke directly to the people and thought that that would be a great thing to affirm that he was the one inspiring Moshe, and it turned out so badly. He says, something, what they're asking for is that I speak through people from here on out
They're
and not
right.
directly
It's a
to
good
them. They're
idea.
right.
Mhm.
So even God
Yeah.
is capable of saying, all right, I learned from that one.
Oh, yeah.
And I think true that when Moshe had his meltdown and it was too big a job for Moshe, Yahweh realized, I did put too much pressure on him. It was too much what I asked him to do. These people are too difficult. Heck, I couldn't even deal with them. So what am I trying to do? Make this man can't deal with them, obviously. And I think what he did is lighten the burden on the next two that would serve in that role. I think he made it easier for us, but he didn't just make it easier for us. What Yahweh had not done to Moshe up to that point is give him some attaboys. Hey, you're doing great. I know this is a tough job, but I really appreciate the job you're doing. We're accomplishing exactly what needed to be accomplished. He didn't give him any attaboys. Dode and I, the attaboys are everywhere. And so God
Moshe was definitely a workhorse.
Yahweh became much more prone to share credit. Now, this, gives me the willies. Here I'm talking about God making a mistake and God admitting that he made a mistake and God changing his approach so that he's more supportive, more complimentary of the people he would work through over time, recognizing that, we humans are pretty frail. We need that kind of
It's
stuff.
a very stressful role.
We need Dad to tell us, hey kid, you're doing a good job.
Yeah.
Maybe even why Yahweh always refers to me as a young man. We just need that. We need Dad to say, hey, you're doing okay. And so, mistake may be the wrong term, but Yahweh grows with us. That was the whole thing. When Yahweh says that through the covenant family, he's going to grow, that means that he can also learn, doesn't it?
Well, if you gather a bunch of kids together and you go to talk to them on a mountain and they all cower and cry and are terrified, you realize, okay, maybe that's a bit, we should have a different approach. Okay.
Yeah, and I'm not certain looking at the way that Moshe responded. I know that Moshe was the only person qualified to do the job that he did. I don't think Moshe had the personality that God would have chosen. I think Dode is far more the personality that God would have chosen. But there wasn't that personality. What there was that knowledge base of having rejected the religion, the politics, the caste economic system, and the militarism of Egypt. And so there was a mutual understanding as to why religion and politics were wrong. And he fit that bill, and he was the only person on the planet that fit that bill who had walked away from those things, which was a requirement for the covenant to be consistent. That's why he chose him. I'm not sure the two of them ever were if you read all the interactions between the two of them, I don't think they were ever BFFs.
I get that feeling.
Yeah.
But
and I think that's the difference is that Dode had an intelligence level that was superlative. He was a rogue. He was passionate. He was articulate. It's almost like he'd wake up in the morning and say, "We're going today, God. It's morning. What are we going to do today? It's going to be fun."
Just like you.
So I just think that there was just as I developed a bromance for Dode, I think Yahweh did. And I do think, and maybe this is conceited, I hope it's not, but I think that the personality, we all have our mannerisms, we have our aptitudes and attitudes, but I do think that the particular attitudes and aptitudes that I brought to this job, which are very irritating, I'm sure, for a lot of people, are very much appreciated by Yahweh. I think he actually likes
the
kind of personality.
Chakmah that we share is so hated.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it doesn't like everybody like a smart aleck, and
Nope.
we are. So there's a lot of things that I think that well, in my particular case versus Moshe's, and Moshe's, it had to be that day. There wasn't any waiting around and saying we'll go another day. It had to be that day, and the children of Israel were getting hammered by the Philistines and would have been bludgeoned into non-existence had Yahweh not chosen Dod at that time to defend his people. I came after 3,000 years after all of this. I mean, God had a lot of time on his hands to say, all right, I'll wait around for somebody that
and his kids had a lot of rebellion on their hands.
Yeah, I'll wait around. I'm not in any hurry here. We'll find a guy that I got a guy.
Yeah, I got a guy. You're gonna love this guy. Remember how much you love bulls, Israel? Yeah, you got one.
Yeah, I just finally figured out as I was writing today why Yahweh has me doing the sacrifice of the Adam of Paran. I'm going to share that in a future program. It brought me to tears even typing the keyboard as to what it accomplished to serve in that role. Anyways, I try to apply these examples to our mission together as a student, as a thinker, as a writer, and now as a speaker. I realized that just as Dod's situation was considerably different than Moshe's, well, mine isn't the same either. For example, there was no written text prior to Moshe and very little beyond the Torah prior to Dod.
Yeah.
So one had nothing to go on, and one had the Torah to go on. Gosh, look what we've got to go on. Heck, I've only translated maybe half of what there's there to translate, and I've got 25,000 pages.
And we wish we'd have started sooner so that we could do more.
No, I don't actually. No, I don't actually. I think that Yahweh was very wise in that regard, and that listen, Moshe had to do it for 40 years.
Yeah.
I will have done it for 32 years. Dod was 33 years as king, or 40 years, something in that range as king. It is only, and he wore out. Moshe wore out.
So did
I don't think Yahweh wants to take the risk of me wearing out, especially at 70 years old. And so I just don't think he wants to take that risk. So he specifically truncated the time, and it's like when God said to me not all that long ago, the marginal utility in writing one more book is not going to be that big a deal. We have a flashing light over here, keeper of the cables. It's not going to be all that big a deal, but you speaking to my people at this time is, I just think that the marginal utility in another book would not have been tremendous. And now when I'm writing, I'm only writing for a singular purpose, this program. In fact, it happens to be for the very subject that we're covering here in Chakmah Choter. So as we look at this, now we have not only these men and who were the most prolific writers in God's history, they convey, but we also have the tomes of men like Yeshua, who wrote the textbook on how to be a choter. And so it would be exceedingly different and disrespectful even then of me not to read them all and to try to share what I can deduce from them, and was able to glean from everyone who spoke for Yahweh. And in so doing, with the seven spirits of Yahweh guiding me, we have cut a lot of new ground. By the way, somebody did the math on the furrowing system that was used, that you would that a bull would plow. There's a very systematic description of how the terms that God chooses to describe the work of a bull as it is cultivating a harvest. And what this person, I forgot who wrote it, so I apologize for not giving them credit, but they know who they are. They did the calculation of the 32 years that we will have worked together. And the distance happens to be the distance between where we sit here on the island of St. Croix and Jerusalem.
Get that
No.
F-bomb out of
No,
here.
it's exactly the same.
No.
Yes, it's the same distance.
No way.
So it's kind of a fun little.
There's a little serendipity
It's a
for
fun
you.
factoid. As a bull, I will have plowed a lot of
So
ground.
cool.
Is the story there? So. With the seven spirits of Yahweh, we have to cut this new ground, not only revealing the entire story from beginning to end and being the first to ever do that, but also conveying countless conclusions which push the boundaries of what can be known and understood about God. And boy, is that ever true now in Daniel,
Oh, yeah.
where
Oh, my goodness.
every statement, and sometimes there's 4 sentences per statement, and each of the 4, I'm revealing things that I'm certain no one has ever considered previously.
Yeah, it's pretty juicy.
It is pretty juicy. It's pretty cool. So while I've consistently and accurately predicted the future, particularly as it pertains to Israel, which is really what I care about, and I only care about the world like America because of its profound influence on Israel today, and Europe because of its influence on Israel today. So almost everything that I do predict is based upon Israel, like I predicted October 7th, a year in advance of it
Yes.
occurring, and discussed what was going to happen. And I'm now telling you that Alaska flood 2.0 is going to occur within 2 years of this time, and that it'll be 1,000 times worse.
Oh.
So I don't.
Do you
I
hear
have
that,
not.
Israel?
I have never considered myself a prophet in this regard, but instead a student of the prophets who has extended the threshold of what can be deduced about our immediate future. But I have never once taken this to the point of pronouncing, "Thus says Yahweh."
No,
Ever.
never.
By learning on the job, I try to be a good example for others to follow, such that I'm always respectful, diligent, consistent, devoted, thorough, rational, and systematic, and very open, transparent. I will say, I think I got that one wrong, but here's the correction. And I think that breeds credibility. If you're a
Yes.
human and you're so open and you're so comfortable with the job that you're doing, you're willing to say, here are my vulnerabilities, and I'm going to share them with you. And here's how I learned where we have, how we've come. And this is why I've deduced these conclusions.
In fact, I have learned that you're so transparent that if you have a secret, best not to tell you because you're a blabbermouth.
Yeah, I'm pretty lousy at keeping secrets. I'll blab about anything,
Yes.
as Rich has found out, being our adopted son here. You don't very often have sons that come in and are adopted that have gray beards,
No.
but nonetheless.
Tough.
Pardon?
I'm tough. A little kid, got to be supervised. Not the smartest in the group.
Oh, I wouldn't go in that. I would just say that we've kind of adopted you, or you've adopted us. I don't know which one is the case. It's a good thing. That's what family is all about. So I am willing and desirous of extending our understanding beyond what was previously deduced, but I'm also willing and eager to refine and correct what was previously stated. And this is an approach which engenders credibility and confidence, which is why Yahweh seems to like it. I'm doing things too that I don't think anyone has ever done before. I'm reading when various people that are associated with God's story say things, and I said, boy, I wish they wish they hadn't said that. And that conclusion isn't correct. And I don't think anyone's ever held God's characters to the same standard that I'm willing to hold myself. And as such, we are occasionally wrong, and we have to be occasionally wrong. Otherwise, eternity is going to be as boring as all get out.
Yep.
You have to be able to correct mistakes and judgment.
We are not automatons.
Oh,
we
God.
are not automatons.
You know,
Like, come
I
on,
have a
guys.
perception
Like,
now
we're
of
not
what,
religious either, so
of-
just
of
let
what
it go.
of what life is going to be like on other
Yeah.
planets. But I could be wrong. Maybe it's conducive to life, and God's going to say, "Okay, you think you can beat the platypus? Go out
Give it
there.
a
I got
try.
a planet already waiting for you.
Give it a try.
Here's the code for life. Yeah, you do your own thing. See what you can come up with."
You know what I think is why Yahweh doesn't mess with free will. Because free will is the only thing left to humanity. Like they can put you in jail, they can lock you up, they can do anything but they can't take your mind or your free will. And if you use that, you can act to learn. You can actually choose Yahweh.
Mhm. Well, I'm not sure that is really the case anymore. I would say that most of the Marxist young people today have been indoctrinated to the point that they've lost the ability to exercise good judgment. You can see a dog tail that's wagging behind me here. That's Asher. But you realize that I think they have forfeited the ability to make reasoned decisions. And if you look at the religious, whether they be Muslims or Christians or whatever, they're also have forfeited the ability to make informed and rational decisions. So I think most of the world is incapable of exercising free will
until they walk away from their father's house.
And I even think there's a lot of people that don't want free will.
I do too.
It's what I witnessed having spent a lot of time in communist China back in the time that there were no enterprise zones, that it was just restrictive, Chinese dictatorship under Mao. And then what I witnessed when I went to Russia when it was the Soviet Union. And then what happened after I left when the Soviet Union fell, for example. And even now what happens in China as people are given choices. And they have a tough time with it.
Yeah,
really, to go into the department store in Russia and have one choice of toothpaste when it happened to be in stock. And one type of bread when it was on the shelf, and you bought it when it was there.
That's right.
And that is so radically different than going into a store now in Russia and having 250 different brands of toothpaste and 200 different types of bread. And now you've got to choose between them. It takes a while to grow into
overload.
That. It's kind of what's going to happen is we'll be expanded from 3 dimensions to 4, 5, 6, and 7. And each of those dimensional increases, the amount of choices that we are going to be offered is so overwhelming that if you were with our present capacity just to be taken from 3 to 4 dimensions, the options would be so tremendous you would instantly just die. The noise, the
your
confusion,
brain
your brain couldn't process it. No. You would literally implode. So you have to be taught how to handle these additional things so that you don't. And there's also a reason that the Torah is going to be put inside of us going forward, because we need guidance, because we're still going to have free will, and you need to know, well, you ought not play with a black hole. Playing with a black hole is a bad idea. Stay away from them. All the rest of it's good.
I think there's another reason we're overlooking, and that's that we will be put in a position to judge others.
Well, there's going to be a lot of that. I don't think a lot of people are going to be put in that position, but I know some people who are. So anyway, in this whole process, our restoring witness is perfected based upon what he has learned and what Dode has done for us as our soul. So long as we never run afoul of Yahweh's test, delineating a false prophet, and remain true to the mission he has prescribed, always proclaiming his name and advancing his testimony, then our experience is not only an opportunity to be an exemplar of how we should spend our eternity with God, is constantly learning, but it's a means to invite others to share in that same process of being so comfortable with what you're doing that you're willing to say, I think this is true based upon these things, and you'll put it out there knowing there's a possibility that you'll change your mind or you'll learn something later, because other people can grow and comment on it. It's a marvelous thing if you have that level of confidence in your relationship with Yahweh. You have to be comfortable with God to be able to do that, to make statements about God, knowing that you are deducing them from the evidence that is provided. You need to be really comfortable with God.
I'm comfortable, and I have a question.
Yes. Okay.
Or maybe a statement, perhaps. So if now we have to be perfect, what's the point of Dode making a sacrifice to perfect us?
Well, it's that would say that the sacrifice would be perfect, that he would. So he himself would have been the perfect sacrifice, fulfilling the
No, what
unblemished
I'm saying
the
is,
unblemished lamb. But
if the
no, it's
Navi
not.
has to be perfect,
But
if the
but,
Navi,
but
you
there's
know,
so few.
what's the point in needing
But there's
those?
only 40 of them, so it's not. There are not enough of them to worry about from that point of view. There's only 40 of them. So that I don't think that's I don't think that is particularly the answer we're looking for. But I can tell you that Dode went into the role imperfect.
Right.
That's not maybe not a fair way to say it. Dode was imperfect in his first of 3 lives, and yet he was a marvelous Nabi. In his second of 3 lives, he would have come from 1,000 years with Yahweh and Shamaim. He would have had a soul that knew Yahweh in the 7th dimension intimately,
Yes.
knowing exactly what God wants of us.
Yep.
And that soul was put into a body that was, didn't really matter other than was going to serve that particular purpose. And so, Dode's soul at that point as perfect as a soul can possibly be.
That's right.
You don't get more perfect than that. So Dode really was perfect from that perspective, because his soul came back from spending 1,000 years with Yahweh. Rich is quite quite convincing about why the Yada and Elia post the Shabuah harvest for me. Now he will have had 2,880 years and more, 85 years actually, and Shamaim with Yahweh. So he's going to come back pretty good understanding of who Yahweh is and what he wants.
Oh, yeah.
That's a long time to spend with Yahweh. As he comes back for this job, I'm only going to have the 3.5 years and maybe even less than that. But the time flows differently there. But it's hard to imagine the difference in your understanding, your passion, your zeal, your confidence, your tenacity, everything after having gone to Shamaim to be with Yahweh, and you say, okay, God, I did my best. Why don't let's begin with where did I get wrong? So that, I'm not repeating. When I go back down, I don't want to repeat any mistake I've made. What did I do wrong? Let's get that cleared up. I'm comfortable having this discussion with you. What did I miss that I should have gotten? So let's get that download. So I make sure we weave that into the story, and tell me exactly how you'd like us to respond to these various groups during this period of time. I want to make certain that I carry this out in a manner that pleases you and accomplishes. So you're now going back after having that conversation with God. His arm around you. Hey kid, you did a good job up to this point. This is what we're going to do going forward. Coach put you back in at that point. I mean, come on. It's like you're cheating.
Here's the
and you're talking against mortals at that point.
Yeah, well, all sacrifices have to be perfect.
Well, there's no such thing as a perfect animal. No, there's no such thing.
Perfected.
No, the perfect is
without flaw.
Now the whole purpose of God saying that animal has to be tamim is to tell you, because there's no such thing as a perfect animal. The body that Dode occupied would not have been perfect as the Passover lamb. We all have flaws in our DNA. And so the purpose
Wookie
is
has no flaws.
No, well. Okay. We'll go with that.
Knocking you up.
Okay. So what Yahweh is telling you is, don't cheat me. Don't cheat yourself. Don't cheat me. Don't pick the runt of the litter. Don't pick the ugly duckling. When you pick this lamb, we're making a substitute for yourself. Don't cheat yourself. Pick the best.
Oh, you mean Dode over Jesus? That
would be an example of that. In other words, sense. God is saying the best I have to offer is Dode.
That's right.
And at this time, I'm sorry, guys, but the best that God has to offer is Yada. So it's just saying, don't cheat yourselves or anybody else. I want you to offer the best you got. And at this time, no, that would be me, is the best that he's got. Not saying much. The bar was really, really low in this particular case. In fact, I think if Wookiee had been there at the right place and right time, he might have gotten the job over me.
He's not smart enough.
So what the prophet Moshe was describing, it really resides, and this is in the 18th chapter of Devarim, it resides in the very center of Yahweh's story. The subject that he is going to allude to in Devarim 18 is Dod, who is the most interesting man in the world. And this is especially true when we consider the Messiah's second and third lives, because they were and will be far greater and more perfect than his first. He is also somebody that was an interesting man in his first life, and he was essentially perfect from the best we can determine in his second, and he's going to be as God in his third. He's Elyon. So that's an upgrade.
Definitely.
It's an upgrade going all the way along. So as a fellow Zeroah, and both as a player, and it appears that God wants my Dod to be a prophet. The subject of this prophecy, we're talking about, and particularly with Dod, because Dod is clearly the ultimate Zeroah and clearly the chosen one, and most certainly a prophet. And he is the person most like Moshe. Further, his life calibrates our assessment of time with an equal number of years spanning his career on either side of Eden. He is the cornerstone, which is always put, in the center of where the walls come together, or the cornerstone that is in the arch that is in the center of it. That's what Dod is. He is the cornerstone, the arch stone, the keystone. And we are going to cover this prophecy, and we'll do it in a future program, but I'm going to lead you up to it from beginning to end. I'm going to start very early in Devarim 18, because I want us all to have the benefit of this. And yes, I'm being a touch selfish. And the reason I'm being a touch selfish here is that and everything we have read, God has asked me to do a job which is right on the edge of being possible. Right there, at the very edge of being possible. And he continues to up the ante and saying, oh, by the way, once you reach what you didn't think was possible and we achieve it, we're going the next step. And this Nabby thing was an example of that, which I did not want to see, and I was not the least bit comfortable with. And so as someone who is doing this program on the covenant family's behalf and on bringing Yehudim into the family, I think it's appropriate that we validate that this term can be used in association with the role that I'm playing, just as it can be used in association with Moshe, who made mistakes, and Dod, who made mistakes. So is our assessment appropriate? Can we, when we view all of this in context, what conclusion are we going to come out with? And so that's the reason I dove right back into this. I don't like running from problems when it comes to Yahweh. One of the things I have learned with Yahweh, if you confront something and it says, wow, I did not expect that. Let's go over here and forget we heard about that. And let's deal with something that's more fun or easier. Well, throwing Nabi in, that was okay. I don't want to go there. That's really uncomfortable. Let's end this discussion and go someplace else. That's not when you got picked people.
What does Leah tell you?
Not my nature.
Put your big boy pants on.
Well, yeah, it's not in my nature. I'm not going to run from it because it's uncomfortable. We're going to tackle it head on. But if we're going to tackle it head on, I have a style, and I'm not going to vary from my style. And that style is, I'm not going to go to the passages in Devarim 18 that say, all right, here's the definition, the test of a prophet, and go through those 4 or 5 verses, and then we're out of here. I can't do it that way. It's just not in my nature. I have to set it in context because I want to know the context of the discussion and what God is trying to lead us to understand and how he wants to come out of that discussion so that we understand his conclusions. And so I'm thorough. And if you don't like that, well, you're not only not going to like me, but you're not going to like Yahweh very much.
Or Dode, because other than Dode, context is king.
Yeah, you're not going to like Moshe.
No.
You're not going to like Dode. You are not going to like me, and you're not going to like Yahowah.
Or Leia.
Because or Leah, we're very robustly devoted to context and to setting the scene, because when you do that, like, here's 35 books behind me. I mean, at least 10,000 profound, unheralded insights, and 95% of them were right the first time I made them and have had no adjustments. And the ones that have been adjusted over time, we've just gone beyond where we thought we would be. You can't do that unless you have considered everything in context and brought it all together. So that's why we're going to start at the beginning of Devarim 18. It means words. And we're going to leave no quarter for the religious, because it impugns everyone who has ever claimed to have received a vision from God since Malachi. Anyone who has claimed that they have received a vision from God, and that breaks new prophetic ground since Malachi 2,450 years ago, quite frankly, has an issue, because there's only one person in that 2,450 years that God has said, that's my guy, I'm speaking through him. All others are therefore imposters. So quite literally, in light of Devarim and Deuteronomy 18, there is no possibility whatsoever that the New Testament, Talmud, Zohar, or Quran were inspired by God.
Dun, dun, dun.
Now, speaking to the Lowy, by the way, that's also affirmed in the prophecy Gabriel, who is Dode, gave in the 9th chapter that it was recorded by Daniel. Would be an end to prophecy. There would be no more. So this begins by speaking to the Lowy, who were enlisted by Yahweh to serve the Israelites, and Moshe began the 18th chapter of Devarim, and we'll share the introduction because I like to give us all something to chew on, to think about between these programs before the time we come back to it.
You just love cliffhangers.
I do, so I'm going to start this one. There should never be, for the Lowy, among the priests, inclusive of the entire lineage of Lowy, any division or deceit, or any inherited infirmities, sickness, or pandemic disease that is associated with Israel. They will be nourished by their inheritance, their inheritance being the transformative fire and light of Yahweh. Therefore, neither an inheritance nor incurable infirmity will not exist for them among their brethren. Yahweh is their inheritance, their birthright and legacy, in accordance with all he has said regarding the relationship for them. So that's Devarim words, Deuteronomy 18, 1 and 2. And Yahweh has laid it on the line. There's going to be a group of people that are set apart from the 12 tribes. They're called the Lowy. The Lowy are not like the rest of you. They're not free enterprise.
Nope.
The rest of you are free enterprise. You can have own. You got to work it within my Yobel's plan, but the rest of you can own land. The rest of you can farm and cultivate or herd sheep on the land. You can build homes. You can do. You can be like Yada and be a merchant. You can do whatever you want to do.
Or be like Leah and be a shepherdess.
Yes, and be a shepherdess. You can do whatever you want to do, but not the Lowy.
Nope.
The Lowy are mine.
Mm-hmm.
And so the Lowy are not going to be enriched by physical things. They aren't going to own property. They are not going to be paid a salary.
From Yahweh's house.
I am responsible for their compensation.
Yep.
Not you. Not them. And their compensation is I've got this under control. Their compensation is going to be they're going to inherit the universe. It's a really good deal that I'm offering them. You don't need to worry about them. But there's not going to be land. There's not going to be money. They're not going to be like the Roman Catholic Church. They're not going to be like today's rabbis who are 300% more money driven than the average cleric. Nope. But by the same token, they're going to be my Lowy, no deceit. No religious pandemic can be seen among them. What I'm giving them is my transformative fire and light. I'm going to enlighten them, enrich them, empower them, take them beyond in dimensions. And therefore, that is their inheritance. And it cannot be something that is passed on like religion, which is an incurable infirmity. It cannot exist with them. And God is saying again, Yahweh, I am their inheritance. I am their birthright. I am their legacy, in accordance with all that I have said about this relationship with them. They had a job to do. Yahweh was going to reward them for doing that job. That's how it begins. And it's amazing where it goes from there. And we'll share that in a future program. And I thank you for listening. We've gone over a lot of territory.
We have one thing left to go over.
What's that? Oh, yes, you do.
Yes, we do.
Keeper of the cables, sir.
Are we ready? Okay, so I'm going to introduce a little ditty, a musical tune that I came up with because war really just kind of irks me. So if you don't mind, Maestro.
First we got the bomb and thought it was good. Then we dropped the nuke on an Asian neighborhood. Okay, now what? The Russians got the bomb, but that's okay. And we told ourselves that the fulcrum of power maintains that way. Got another vodka? Okay, then what? Oh yeah, may we? France got the bomb, don't be peeved. Guys like Macron will always concede. Oh, aha. Okay, then what? Who's next? I'm grieved. Oh no, I believe China got the bomb, but don't you fear. Xi's got Putin's back for the last few years. Gee whiz. Oh, what's next? This too much, I tell ya. Oh dear, now look. Egypt's got the bomba, and they got their sights on those Yahud. Oh yeah, shit! This can't be good. What now? Who's next? This is terrible. India and Pakistan got the bomb. Don't you know those two hate each other? What you think gonna happen? Oh me, oh my, what's this? Who's next? This hit is dark. The mullah's gonna get the bomb and make it in secret. While underground, Israel thought they got them, but Iran moved material round. This is bad! This is horror for the people with your goddamn bombs! Treating life like it's yours to destroy! Who's next? Doesn't matter! It's death for us all, 'cause they got the bomb!
Thank you for joining us. I hope you enjoyed the song. And Yada's having a bit of technical difficulty, so I'm signing us off. Shalom.